Dead in the corner, belly up. There was a collective odor of steam rising from sodden dog hair. "Ugh," said his wife, who was accustomed to steam rising off only one wet dog. Father Tim looked up from the journal in which he was transcribing notes collected hither and yon. "So, what are you doing today, Kavanagh?" Cynthia mashed the plunger of the French coffee press. "I'm doing the sketch of Violet looking out the kitchen window to the barn, and I'm calling Puny to find out about the twins. They're days late, you know." "Good idea. Expected around March 4th or 5th, and here it is the 14th. They'll be ready for kindergarten. And you must run to Mitford with the shopping list for Dooley's homecoming dinner tomorrow. Consider it done." His heart beat faster at the thought of having their boy home for spring break, but the further thought of having nothing more to accomplish than a run to the local was definitely discouraging. Heaven knows there was hardly anything to do on the farm but rest, read, and walk 4 dogs. He'd scarcely struck a lick at a snake since arriving in mid-January. Willie Mullis, a full-timer who'd replaced the part-time Bo Davis, lived on the place and did all the odd jobs, feeding up and looking after livestock. Joyce Havner did the laundry and cleaning, as she'd done at Meadowgate for years. Blake Edistow ran the vet clinic, only a few yards from the farmhouse door, with consummate efficiency. There was even someone to bush hog and cut hay when the season rolled around. In truth, it seemed his main occupation since coming to farm-sit for the Owenses was waiting to hear from his bishop, Stuart Cullen, who had emailed him before Christmas. "Heads up. I will almost certainly have something for you early next year. As you might expect, it isn't anything fancy, and God knows it will be a challenge. Yet I admit I'm patently envious. Can't say more at this time, but we'll be in touch after the holy days, and we shall see what's what. I do recall, by the way, that you're spending next year at the Owens farm, and this would not be a conflict." He had scratched his head throughout the month of January, trying to reckon what the challenge might be. In February, he'd called Stuart, attempting to gouge it out of him, but Stuart had asked for another couple of weeks to get the plan together before he spilled the beans. Now here they were in the middle of March, and not a word. "You're sighing, Timothy." "Wondering when Stuart will get off the pot. He's retiring in June and consecrating the cathedral. Altogether a great deal to say grace over. You'll hear soon, dearest." She handed him a mug of black coffee, which he took with gratitude. So here he sat, retired from nearly 4 decades of active ministry as a priest, toasting himself by an open fire with his good-humored and companionable wife of 7 years, and situated in what he believed to be the most breathtakingly beautiful countryside in America. Why bother, after all, about some challenge that may or may not be coming? Hadn't he had challenges enough to last him a lifetime? His wife, on the other hand, was ever drumming up a challenge. During their year at the farm, conveniently located 15 to 20 minutes from Mitford, she decided to accomplish 3 lifetime goals: learn needlepoint, make perfect oven fries, and read War and Peace. So how's it coming with War and Peace? I despise telling you this, but I haven't opened it once. I'm reading a charming old book called Mrs. Miniver. And the fries? Since Dooley comes tomorrow, I'll be conducting my next experiment to see whether soaking the potatoes in ice water will make them crispier. And I'm definitely using peanut oil this time. "I'll peel and cut," he said. He hadn't seen any activity around the needlepoint plan, so he declined to mention it. "Pathetic," she said, reading his mind. "I'm all thumbs. Learning from a book is not the way to do it. I've decided to let Olivia tutor me, if she has a free day now and then. Besides, having lunch with someone who also wears eyeshadow might be fun. I'm definitely a dud in the eyeshadow department. She thumped into the wing chair opposite him and took a sip from her coffee mug. And what about you, dearest? Have you accomplished all your lifetime goals? Oddly, the question stung him. I suppose I haven't thought about it. Maybe he hadn't wanted to think about having any further goals. He closed his eyes and leaned his head against the back of the wing chair. I believe if I were charged with having a goal, it would be to live without fretting, to live more fully in the moment, not always huffing about as I've done in recent years, to live humbly and appreciatively, with whatever God furnishes. He reflected for a moment and raised his head and looked at her. Yes, that would be my goal. But aren't you doing that? No, I feel obligated to get out there, to open myself to some new and worthwhile service. I've been a bump on a log these last weeks. It's okay to be a bump on a log once in a while. Be still, he tells us, and know that I am God. We must learn to wait on him, Timothy. All those years of preaching and celebrating and doing the interim at White Cap, what a lovely legacy God allowed you to have there, and ministering to Luella and Miss Sadie, and Helene Pringle and Morris Love, and George Gaynor and Edith Mallory, and the Leapers. She took a deep breath. On, an entire community, for heaven's sake. Not to mention volunteering at the Children's Hospital and rounding up Dooley's little sister and brothers. One brother still missing, he said, and what have I done about it? There may be nothing you can do about it. There's absolutely nothing to go on, no leads of any kind. Maybe God alone can do something about it. Perhaps Kenny is God's job. The fire crackled on the hearth. The dogs snored. His wife had just preached him a sermon, and it was one he needed to hear. He had a mate who knew precisely what was what, especially when he didn't. "Let us then be up and doing," he quoted from Wordsworth, "with a heart for any fate. Where's the grocery list?" "In my head at present, but let's get it out." She opened the small drawer in the lamp table and removed her notebook and pen. "Steak," she scribbled. "Same old cut?" Same old, New York strip. This would be no Lenten fast, but a Lenten feast for a starving college boy who was seldom home. "Russet potatoes," she said, continuing the litany. "Always best for fries." His blood would soon get up for this cookathon, even if he couldn't eat much on the menu. While some theologians construed St. Paul's thorn to be any one of a variety of alarming dysfunctions, he'd been convinced for years that it was the same blasted affliction he'd ended up with, diabetes. "Pie crusts," she said, scribbling on. "Oh, rats! For the life of me, I can't remember all the ingredients for his chocolate pie. And, of course, I didn't bring my recipe box." "I never liked the recipe we use," he said, suddenly confessional. "You're not supposed to even touch chocolate pie, Timothy, so what difference does it make? Dooley loves it. It isn't half bad, really." "It needs something." "Like what?" "Something more, you know." "Whipped cream." His wife loved whipped cream. With the slenderest of excuses, she would slather it on anything. "Not whipped cream. Something more like—" He threw up his hands. His culinary imagination had lately flown south. "Meringue, then." "Meringue," he said, slapping his leg. "That's it." She bolted from her chair and trotted to the kitchen counter.